There's loads of great books out at the minute talking about how cities and transport are designed for men, and actually women are kind of just existing in the little gaps that we've made for ourselves.
There are lots of ways that we can kind of unlock that female conversation, but that kind of safe female travel is one of those. Independent travel, right?
Yeah. Hello and welcome to Women in the Driving Seat, the podcast that shines a light on women in the automotive industry. This week we're going to be talking about Vogue, sustainable urban transport and possibly netball. It's a crazy mixed bag of joy. I'm delighted to be joined by Melanie Keyte, who heads up automotive relationships at Condé Nast, and Daveena Saranna, who leads Top Women in EV, among many other things. Let's have a look first at guest bios before we get into stuff. Daveena is the EV campaigns manager at Green TV Media, where she heads up Top Women in EV, making waves in both sustainability and media. With a career that includes everything electric, Izu, Blenheim Palace, and the England Men's and Mixed Netball Association, she's mastered the art of blending content, sustainability, and being a 25-year-old woman with a big passion for what she does. Outside of her day job, Daveena is juggling a third degree in sustainable urban development at the University of Oxford, because why not, she says, and trying, emphasis on trying, to be a netball pro. She's the type to talk first, think later, read, run, and rekindle friendships at the most conveniently overdue times. In Daveena's world, more is definitely more. Wow, I'm exhausted already.
God, I feel unbearable listening to that.
Melanie. Mel is commercial director at Condé Nast, specialising in the automotive sector, where she spent the past 6 years driving strategic growth and partnerships. Before this, she managed fashion and brand collaborations at Grazia and spent time in Australia working across Condé Nast's portfolio of brands. Passionate about the intersection of media, luxury and innovation, she thrives on building meaningful connections and delivering impactful commercial strategies. Outside of work, she's a single mum of 2, always fighting for control of the playlist in the car. When not negotiating music choices, she runs around the house with incense, fully embracing the ritual. This is a good combination of bios here. I can tell this is going to go well today. Hello, welcome.
Morning.
Hello.
Thank you very much for joining me today. So we always start with the same question for all our guests. Mel, let's go to you first. What's been going on in your week? What plates have you been spinning? What balls have you been dropping? There's got to be plenty.
Do you know what? It's been a comical week.
Good.
I feel like I'm on the precipice of a motherland moment.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm having that week.
I hear you.
I've had a school strike for 2 days for my eldest. We've got World Book Day tomorrow. We've got Parents' Evening tomorrow. It's one of those weeks amongst a really busy time at work. Like I'm on some critical big deadlines at work. So it's quite intense, I would say.
Wow.
This week it's busy and a little office move in amongst that. But yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
And
we're still smiling.
How many days are you coming into London to the office?
4, Monday to Thursday, Fridays at home.
Like, well, working at home on a Friday
yeah,
or just
yeah,
off?
working from home on a Friday.
Wow, the juggle is real.
It's busy.
Daveena, what's been going on in your week?
Wow. Well, this week is the week of the online campaign for Top Women in EV. So that is off with a bang on LinkedIn. It's every minute of the day. It's international. It's happening. Spinning plates, dropping balls. Yeah, I mean, the back of my head feels like a Greek restaurant where everyone's smashing plates and yelling "whoppa." So I don't really know. Do you know what? I had a big fat cry the other day. It was just like a moment of.
Sometimes you need it.
Yeah, exactly. And then after I was like, why was I even crying? I'm so over it. But I just needed a release because, I don't know, life just gets really busy. And then I remember who I am and I obviously stopped crying. But for a minute,
Do you know
it was
what?
a lot.
Let's just pick up on that point about crying, right? Because this is a bugbear of mine. I mean, we cry to release tension in our bodies. It's just a physiological response.
Yeah.
But it's become this bad, oh God, not a woman crying in the
Oh,
office.
it drives me mad.
I cry all the time and I think it's fine because I feel better for it and it helps me just get out some of that pent-up frustration. And I'm just an emotional person. And I used to think that's so bad because people say, oh, you're ruled by your emotions. Yeah, and I'm really in touch with other people. And I like being that way. I like being able to sense how my colleagues are feeling, how my friends are feeling, and empathise with something that I've never gone through. But I enjoy it. It helps me in my research, in my life. And yeah, I'm overly emotional. Get with or get out. Like, that's the way it is.
But also, sometimes it is immediate, isn't it? And you can't stop that, and you shouldn't.
Yeah, it's weird.
Okay to
I've
cry.
never seen a man cry in the office, but why not? I mean, more crying in the office. That's
More
what we
crying
take
in the
away
office.
from this
I agree,
episode.
Erin.
Mel, Vogue.
Yes.
I mean, Hello.
Yes.
Disclaimer, I write a monthly Vogue on the road.
Thank goodness for you.
Just generally, right? Column for you guys.
Yes.
One of the biggest moments of sexism I've had in my career in automotive has come from editors of women's magazines saying, no, we don't want to take car content because we don't think our audience will be very interested in that because they're women and women don't want to read about cars. And I've always thought, wow, but most of your audience will own cars, they'll be buying cars, they'll be looking for their next car, and they'll be wondering what to get. So, okay, you might not want to carry car reviews like any of the blokey magazines do. I get that. So we just have to think about how we craft the content. And I think, we do it at Vogue with Vogue on the road. It's a travel trip. It's a little mini break. We also talk about the places we visited, the nice places to eat or stay. And we weave in stuff about the car into that, and important stuff about the car, like CarPlay, and things that actually matter to consumers rather than horsepower. Why has Vogue decided to stick with editorial car content?
I think you're right. The moment I started at Vogue, so we were just single brand then, so just working on Vogue. Now we do portfolio, but when I started just at Vogue. And it was very clear to me when we look at the research, and we talk about this all the time, that when we look at high net worth, back in 2020, 5% of the Vogue audience was a high net worth. Now it's 11%. Financial female empowerment is growing. The power that women have financially has grown. The fact that women look for different things when they want to buy a car, we know that it's not the same as men. But also those touch points become different. And I think what I had when I started at Vogue looking at the car industry was somebody in the room that also understood the car industry. And I met you, and it was like, we need to be working together, and we need content that is regular, that is useful to the audience. And I think, they really supported me in that. And what that has meant is that we have content that's relevant, but also we've grown a category that had no revenue against it to being, the second biggest non-endemic revenue at Condé Nast now.
Really?
So it's huge. So it's really opened up something. And I knew, instinctively at the time that it was right, and that there was a market there, and that car brands and kind of wider than that need to talk to women in a different way. And I think it's that, isn't it? We know that women are earning more money. We know that they have more assets than they've ever had before. We know that, the balance of driving licenses is shifting in terms of power too. So we know it's there. It's just like, how do we unlock that, and how do we make it powerful, and how do we make it right? And with a Vogue lens. So I think we've absolutely done that, and I'm in year 6. And we're, already we've had the biggest quarter we've ever had in Q1. So great news from us from a, commercial perspective.
I also think, it's really, magazines have to be very careful if they say, on the one hand, commercially to OEMs and car brands, advertise with us because there's a great connection between your brand and our audience, and they'd love to buy cars from you. But on the other hand, turn around and say to journalists editorially, oh, we're not going to cover cars editorially. There's no link. I mean, there either is a link between the audience or there's not. And you and I believe there is. It can prove there is. I always quote the stat from the US. In the US right now, women are the majority car buyer. Yes. We're not talking about this, they influence the majority of decisions, i.e. the men have the wallets, but there's always a good woman behind them influencing
it's so
patronising. They're buying the cars.
Yeah, they're buying the cars. They have the money. They have different reasons for looking at cars too. When we did some research last year, and one of the big things that came back for women was actually they're looking at the much more practical aspect of cars. And I think that's where we need to be meeting women. It's like, how there are so many moments within our lives where we need a car, right? And what is that moment, and how do we accommodate that moment? So whether, twice a year Vogue publishes Mini Vogue, which is all around, supporting modern mothers. So actually, we should be doing more in that space, because that's one of those kind of moments where we've, been there, where you need a different car. Your car becomes a completely different vehicle for you. So I think there are other ways that we can be supporting from a content point of view, where we're kind of not working with some of those OEMs where I think we could be in a different way.
Yeah. And we do it, of course, you do it within the sensibilities, don't you, in the aesthetics of the publication that you're writing for. So we keep the cars that we talk about on Vogue editorially either high end or very sustainable. It's got to align with Vogue's brand values.
Yeah.
But it works.
Of course, and I think for us, EVs first.
Yeah.
You are so cool. Sorry, that I was just the whole time you were talking, I was obsessed with you.
Oh, thank you. Lovely to meet you.
Just a general love in here. I love it.
Obviously.
Daveena, well, that brings us neatly onto Top Women in EV. For those people who've heard nothing about that, what is it?
I mean, first of all, are you living under a rock? Yes, it's a huge, giant global campaign that is running on LinkedIn. It's in its 5th year now. It's called Top Women in EV. And what we do is platform, I've got to get the numbers right here, 10 women each day for 7 days, so 70 women in total, in all different corners of the EV industry, whether that be like logistics or marketing or finance, and basically uplift women. And we take in literally hundreds of nominations for women across the industry and just hear really fantastic things about them. And it's incredible. I mean, talking about crying, I was reading nominations for people I've never met before and thinking, oh God, that one touched me. That was really nice. And some of them were deeply personal. Like, yes, you know, Mel is great at her job and she does X, Y, and Z, but she also helped me through the death of my father and raising my child. And I'm like, wow, these women are so incredibly talented and are just changing the industry beyond what I could possibly vocalize right now. And to just give them a moment to say, yeah, you know, bask in the glory, have that moment to recognize what you've done and the impact you're having on not only the people that you work with, but people that look up to you. It's just been, a real career highlight, and I'm proud to be a part of it. And
what sort of women are we talking about in terms of roles in the industry? Could it be women working in EVs for OEMs, retailers, suppliers, media?
Absolutely anything. So we've changed the categories this year because I looked at it last year when I wasn't working at Green TV, and I thought, I can't see anybody that is my age, that is like me, that's new to the industry, but really keen to get going. So this year we have a rising star category, and that's for people that might have, you know, be in their 60s and changed industries and had a lifetime working in something else and come to EV, or, you know, young women that are starting their journey that are in their early 20s but are just having a bloody good go of making change. And they are, but you've also got, you know, your C-suite people in there as well, and your lifelong advocates of EVs. It's a range. I adore the fact that you just said about Rising Star, it could be a woman in her 60s. Yeah. Absolutely, damn right. I've got a real age bee in my bonnet at the moment. The thing is, with being a woman, you feel like you can never win, right? When you're young, people are like, oh, you need more experience, you need this, you don't know what you don't know. And then when you get into your late 50s and 60s, people are like, yeah, but you know, you're past the point now, you don't know. And there seems to be this mythical age that nobody can quite get to being a woman. Yeah, and I just think it's stupid. Like, it doesn't exist. It doesn't exist. And women in their 50s and 60s are teaching me so much, even though EV is a new industry. They've still had a life of working experience that they can teach me things from. Most of it is about personal relations and communicating with other people and teamwork and that kind of stuff. That doesn't change. Yeah. The older you get, you probably just rack up more and more information. So, silly. I knew this episode was going to be joyous. Now, this is obviously the glamorous episode because we've got Vogue in the room. So, Daveena, can electric cars be glamorous? Are they sexy? Yes. I mean, anything we do is inherently sexy, right? So yes, immediately. Sorry, but I think so. When we look at the way that men interact with cars, right? They're in music videos, they're in adverts for luxurious things like watches and aftershaves and stuff. They are associated with this innate sexiness appeal. And then you look at the exact same thing for women, and there's no cars, and it's not the same thing. So I think cars can be sexy. Of course they can. Their EVs are quick and they're silent, and they've got all these cool sort of mad features going on with them that ICE cars don't have. Why aren't we thinking about them in a sort of sexy, desirable way? And where does that start and end? Like, I was thinking about cultural movements in the summer, and I don't know whether you've heard of Charlie XCX, and everyone's having this brat summer. It's very cool. Where she has 2 songs purely about cars. Mm-hmm. Where were the EVs in that? This could have been a mega marketing thing for some of the OEMs that are like, do you know what? We're not really resonating with young women or cool people. Let me push out a load of marketing to that and get on board with some of these cool artists, younger people that are really affecting like cultural shifts in our generation. And I just feel like it's such a missed opportunity. You're right. And I don't really like the phrase empowerment because I think it's a bit hashtag, a bit of a cliche. But there is something there should be something really empowering about using cars in that sort of space, shouldn't there, with young women, you know,
whether it's, I hate to say it actually, but whether it's a massive, great big V8 or it's a really cool electric car, just all this status symbol that has so long been the preserve of men could be and is a real status symbol for women. It's why a lot of women spend a lot of money on cars.
Yeah. Exactly. And having, sorry, I've got a really sore throat today, having some press cars from lots of different brands and showing up to events and people are like, is that your car? Wait, you're driving that? Because it's just, you know,
it blows people's mind.
If a man pulled up in that, they'd be like, oh, you know, that's Bob's car. But Daveena, you're driving that? That's so crazy. And I started making these silly car reviews on LinkedIn because I was like, I actually don't like cars at all, which people will find weird, but I need to drive to get to places. I don't have a lot of money. I want to do it quickly. And I really do want to be sustainable. That I love sustainability and I want to preserve the planet. Let me do that. Let me get into a car and think, do you know what, this isn't working for me, or this is really well designed for my lifestyle. I'm not the woman that you see in car adverts. I don't have kids. I don't have a husband. I'm not, you know, a CEO or this, that, and the other. But I need to drive. And so I started making these car reviews talking about whether they fit in car seats or whether my bag can fit there. Where does it fit my snacks? What's the range to fit in with my social life? Because I'm going clubbing in York on Friday. Like, does it fit in?
But you won't be drink driving, just getting that in there.
We don't support.
but here's the rub. There's a massive knowledge gap between men and women when it comes to EVs.
Yeah.
And that there's, you know, which is something, you know, we can assist with. But I think that, you know, that does start with an OEM. And I think that is one of the issues. There is massive disparity between what women know about EVs and what men know. And I think that's where we need to be working together to make sure that we are making these cars sexy, but also at the other time, making them really practical, right? Yeah. Making the audience understand why EVs are the right choice. You know, one of the things that came out again was practicality, but also around sustainability and responsibility. So how are we talking about that to the audience? And I don't think we really are. In the way that we need to in that space. Yeah. I think for so many reasons, and I think that's where some of the challenges are.
Well, talking of challenges and how we address those, in particular with things like paid partnerships and so on, we'll come to that in a second. But first, ladies, it's time for podcast pit stop. Are you both ready? We're going to start with Daveena.
Okay.
Quick fire round. Here we go. Bus or e-bike?
E-bike.
Lululemon or Under Armour?
Lululemon.
Working from home or in the office?
Working from home.
Wing attack or wing defence?
Wing attack.
Oxford or Cambridge?
Oxford.
Wrong answer, but we'll carry on. Reuse or recycle?
Both.
Yeah, fair enough. See through your curveball there. Mel.
God, go on.
Reading or writing?
Reading.
Vogue or Tatler?
Oh, God. Both.
You're such wimps, both you. Zara or Massimo Dutti?
Zara.
Singing in the shower or singing in the car?
Oh, both. 100%.
Porsche Boxster or Porsche 911?
911.
Really?
100%.
Comedy or horror?
Comedy.
Boom. There you go.
That's just
short and sweet.
Exactly. We're in.
So back to the conversation. Mel, what kind of things, you know, how do car brands activate with Condé Nast, with Vogue, with all your lovely glamorous titles? What sort of things do you do? Is it, you know, people still think about traditional display ads and so on, but what kind of cool partnerships have you been up to?
I mean, we can do anything from really simple press campaigns, simple digital campaigns, through to award-winning, big, multi-platform, multi-brand partnerships. But I guess the one that I'm the most proud of this year, that I think does everything that we're talking about, right, is a partnership that we are in year 5 of with BMW and Vogue around Forces for Change, which is, you know, the purpose arm of British Vogue.
Year 5, by the way, that's
year
quite
5.
a long lived.
That is a long time.
Isn't it? Yeah.
We've won awards. You know, we've had an intern program that's seen, you know, a joint program between BMW, so students taking time at BMW and at Vogue. So it's been a really impressive.
Interesting. So what do they do? Yeah. What might they do if they're doing time at BMW and time at Vogue? What sort of things would they be doing at each brand?
So For Vogue, they sat partly with the commercial team and partly with the editorial team, just kind of mapping and looking what's going on, joining meetings, having projects that they were working on. And then we still have, like, one of the interns that came into Vogue still comes into the office, and we've worked with since as well.
That's so clever.
So it was really, and that was year one, and that was something that kind of we'd never done before with a partner. I think we do have an intern program at Condé Nast that's just gone live, so still chance everybody. But it was the first one that we've done with a collaborative partner.
I mean, that's incredible. When you think back 15 years
Yeah.
ago, if there was a commercial conversation going on between a media platform and OEM, it would simply be around inventory, really, wouldn't it? And what kind of ads you can do. But now
it's not. Because also it should be about the convening power of two brands, right? And what we can do together. And I think that's exactly what we've done with BMW. So this year we launched a Future Creators competition. So we had Julia Hobbs from Vogue, we had Simone Rocha, the designer, and then we had Charlotte Canters from BMW, head office in Munich, kind of head of materials. And we set a competition to find 3 new young jewellery or fashion designers. So recent graduates were set a project that focused on the concept car, the newer Classe, and the 3 kind of guiding principles there, which were innovation, luxury, and circularity. And the responses that we had over 200 responses. And when you think about what the audience has to do, so you're already looking at recent graduates, so you're narrowing down. And then pieces to camera, design submissions, like it was incredible. Like already we were like, we're on the precipice of something amazing. So then we selected between us all with the judges 3 finalists, and those kind of 3 finalists or winners, we took them to Munich, and they got to go behind the scenes in the design office at BMW. You know, they got an amazing experience. We then did a Vogue photo shoot over in Munich. And then at the end of the year, we have our kind of Vogue gala moment for Forces for Change. And in that moment, they could present and launched the products that, you know, we'd given them a £5,000 bursary to make, and they were kind of launched there. And the 3 winners, Destiny, Selena, and Joaquin, are amazing. You know, Destiny works with assisted medical devices, so she made a hearing aid. Joaquin made the coolest sunglasses, kind of from re-engineered car parts that use kind of car paint on them for that reflective moment. And Selena made so we figured out that some of the material used in the newer Classe were from fishing nets. So she'd made her kind of dress out of that material. So, you know, these 3 people have come into kind of the Vogue and BMW universe and created something and launched it and had this moment in Vogue, in print, online, on video. Yeah. And, you know, we've hopefully, you know, helped launch their careers in a way that, you know, if you are working together, you can do, right? And that is a gift. It is really rewarding that we get to do that.
Fit into lots of different. I feel like women are always put into these little boxes. Well, you either do this or you do that, and you know, cars and fashion and sustainability like don't go together. And actually, young people are saying, well, they do, and they can, and. To give a proper platform to do that is hats off to you. That's great. Yeah.
And also, it's not just shoehorning a car and a woman together somehow.
And feeling
it's principle based. It's principle based, right? And really practical. So, yeah, I mean that's one of that's one of the bigger ones, and that's something that we do that takes up a lot of time for both brands. You know, and the BMW team here and in Munich have been fantastic and really collaborative. So that's hopefully we'll win some awards. But we're super proud.
I mean, that ought to go out as a case study and be touted around the international motor shows where you still get some cars on stands with women draped over them.
Oh, don't you know?
I was looking for a photo to put on LinkedIn of when I first got into automotive because my parents worked in automotive, literally everybody I'm related to, and they had a Porsche dealership. So I've travelled the world, I've been to a few different car launches, and it was really sad. I found one from about 2007, so I was about 6 or 7, and I was in the car, and the only other women that are in any of these pictures are scantily clad women draped over the car. And I look back and I was like, that's so heartbreaking that, you know, my brother will have a completely different view on the industry and the way that he interacted with it, because a young boy interested in cars is really cool. A young girl remotely interested in cars is like, oh yeah, we'll go and sit with the other girls or do some colouring or do this or do that. And actually, maybe I would have liked cars a lot earlier if I would have been introduced to them or told that they were cool and I saw other women doing cool stuff. But instead, I'm just like apathetic until 5 minutes ago when I woke up and thought, God, I need a car.
Yeah. You can't see what you can't be. No,
Exactly. Well, you really can't be what you can't see. Yeah.
Daveena, urban mobility. We've got to get into this because you're all about urban mobility. Explain your expertise here, and this is where Oxford comes into it, doesn't it?
Yes. Okay. So I am doing a degree at the University of Oxford that's called Sustainable Urban Development. So it's all about what makes cities what they are and everything that goes into that. So whether that's the built environment or transport or financing or people and community, it all kind of knits together to be this one big like fabric of society. Why it's important, and what I find funny is people always say to me, God, that's really niche. And I think, is it? Have you ever been to a city? Have you ever used any form of transport? Oh yeah, well obviously. And I think, well then it's not niche, it affects you and these decisions are being made on behalf of you. So it's important to recognise that. And there's loads of great books out at the minute talking about how cities and transport are designed for men, and actually women are kind of just existing in the little gaps that we've made for ourselves. And what would gender positive design look like that works for everybody? I really like this phrase that a high tide raises all ships. It does. When we're talking about electric vehicles, if we make things cheaper, more accessible, the information is more understandable, that benefits everybody. It doesn't just benefit women, also benefits men and people with accessibility issues. It's trying to have like a just transition where everybody's involved. So that's why I like urban mobility. I started off kind of as a geographer doing global sustainable development. Quite honestly, I wasn't that interested in the rural side of things, but I just, seeing as I've never lived in a city, was completely obsessed with them because I was just like, I can't figure out how they work. And you think that you fix one problem and actually another one crops up. So it's like super, super interesting and engaging, but also very tricky.
Yes, I remember, I think there's a bit, isn't there, in Caroline Criado Perez's book, Invisible Women, which everyone in the industry quotes all the time. But I think there's a bit in there, isn't there, about how urban transport systems are designed with men as the default persona. And so it includes things like, you've got to think about bus stops and the bus routes, and why don't the bus routes go nearer the schools and the
care facilities? And it's so much deeper than you think. And once you get into it, it's a bit of a rabbit hole, because then you think, wait, my whole life's been pre-decided for me because I can only act in these certain ways with transport and with cars because I've been told to do that. And it's the same when we're thinking about private transport and people with car ownership and usership, what that looks like. And I feel weird because I've grown up around cars, and if I feel this way, what about people that have literally no interest from the get-go? How on earth do we like bridge that gap? Because even talking to some of my male friends that are my age, they just don't care. And I'm like, I feel like there's a massive disconnect. And so I'm trying to, in my work, make it fun and make it interesting and relay some of the passions and concerns that I have as a young person. But it's pretty lonely because I sometimes feel like I'm the only one. I look around and I'm like, yep, so that's me.
See, that's another reason this podcast exists, is so that we know we are not alone, everyone listening out there, because there's so many pockets of women working in different bits of the industry, but there still isn't the network that there is for men in this industry.
And it's hard. It makes it really difficult because if you do have a certain experience that isn't so positive at an event or anything like that, it inevitably knocks your confidence, and you feel like you have to go above and beyond every point and be super brilliant and the first person to do this. And first, I don't want to. I just want to do my job like everybody else does it. But it is hard, and that's why I've trying to juggle 1 million things and do this degree, because for me it's so important, and I just feel like we can't learn enough at the minute. Like there's so much information everywhere. I just want to be a sponge and soak it all in so I can make informed choices.
I hear you. Coming back to top women in EV briefly, do you get any pushback from men saying this is sexist? Why are you doing top women in EV? Why can it be top? Where's the top men in EV?
I think some men do a really good job at disguising their sexism with jokes. So we've had a few people say, but an all-female panel, let's have an all-male panel. Look around, they're all male. Or, when's there going to be a top men in EV day? But I think there's enough good men out there to kind of squash that. And actually what we've tried to do this year is take on feedback from men and women and say, right, how can we improve it? We get it, top women in EV, what now? And so we've grown it to this year-long program where actually we're saying, if you don't know as much as you'd like to know about this, join in, ask questions, get curious, have important conversations, because that's really where we grow, rather than just, women on this side, men on that side. We need to be open, and it is really difficult. Sometimes I have these really open conversations with my dad that works in automotive and runs his own business in EV. And he said to me once, it really sticks with me, he's going to hate that I said this. He's like, the world is changing so fast, and sometimes it feels like you don't know how to keep up with that. And I really sympathise with that, because, looking at it from a young person, everything's instant. Why don't you know that? And sometimes you can hinder your own progress by being so, on your own track about something, and actually taking a minute to say, yeah, that's really fair that you don't know that. Let's chat about it. Actually, I think it could be like this. And I've seen my dad make really positive changes in the last few years, and I'm so proud of how far he's come. And we had a Top Women in EV event, and he was one of the few men there.
Oh,
and I was thinking, that's so good for you, because you genuinely want to do that for yourself.
Yeah.
So it's
got to stay curious, haven't you?
Yeah.
I think you have, and it's just a case of no matter which way you swing it, there will always be pushback, there will always be feedback, and people criticising, but I would rather do something with the right intent and maybe get it slightly wrong than not do anything at all. And I think that applies for anything that I have in my life. I'm very open about that when people want to ask questions about race or culture or gender, anything else. And I'm the same. I say to some of my friends, oh, have I said that wrong? You can completely tell me. And they do. And then I improve, and we share knowledge. That's the way the world works.
I think that's a bit of a generational thing. Looking at Mel now, she's an old hag like me, really.
Yeah, I mean, over the hill.
I've got to ask you briefly about working at Condé Nast and Vogue. Is every day like Devil Wears Prada in the office?
No. Of course
Damn it.
What? Do you get
Don't
free
say normal
clothes?
people.
I'm interested
No,
about the clothes.
Of course we don't.
She's just saying that because she wants to keep them all for herself.
How did you know?
But seriously,
My fingers crossed.
Paint a picture of working at Condé Nast and maybe at Vogue in particular. Collaborative, lovely, stressful, all ages.
It's all ages.
Men and women.
Yes. And I think when we look at, you go behind the curtain, we're working with some of the most amazing people, and when we look at, my remit is 10 brands, 59 million reach a month.
Give us a quick flavour of those brands, because I sometimes...
Shall I try and get them all? I'll try and get them all. Vogue, GQ, Glamour, World of Interiors, House and Garden, Wired. How many is that? 6 or 7?
Mate, don't ask me. You're counting.
6, 7. Wired. What else? GQ. Did I say GQ?
Yeah.
World of Interiors.
Oh, yeah, totally
Glamour. Condé Nast Traveller.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
How could I forget that?
I know.
That.
Condé Nast Traveller. And Divya Tani, who was the new global editorial director of Condé Nast Traveller, sits in the Adelphi with us, and she's amazing. And I think,
which is your incredible building, isn't it?
Which
the
is
Adelphi,
our incredible
down
building,
by the
down over the water. It's beautiful.
That makes you feel that sense of occasion.
That is a great brand. When we look at supporting women, there is a podcast and editorial franchise called Women Who Travel, because actually solo female travel is one of the fastest growing areas that kind of data is telling us, particularly that women come to Condé Nast Traveller for. So there are lots of ways that we can kind of unlock that female conversation, but that kind of safe female travel is one of those. Independent travel, right?
Yeah. Oh, let's do an independent travel podcast next. I see you and me on a beach somewhere now. Any excuse. Well, we're almost out of time. It's time for last questions of the day, which is tips, tricks, hints. Mel, for anyone wanting to work at Vogue, how do they get a foot in the door?
Enter competitions like the BMW one. We have an intern program. Get to know everybody. Be around. Be in the market. Be passionate. Choose your part of the market that you are really passionate about. I mean, I honestly, when I was at uni with 2 of my uni friends, we all lived together. We all kind of wanted to work at Vogue, and here we are. Just a few years later, and all of us have worked at Vogue in some way or another, almost all at the same time. So I think if it's there and it's manifested and you're working towards it, it will happen.
Believe and it will happen. Yeah. Daveena, I'm fascinated about this idea of going back to university or juggling a degree with work. Hints for women thinking, I want to do that. Is it possible? How do I do it?
Do it. Full stop. I hear so many women say, oh, I could never do that. well, you've stopped yourself before you've even tried. And actually, if you've worked in business, you've already got lots of skills that are applicable to academics as well. And I think the backbone of any degree is wanting to do it and doing the work and, you know, making time for it. You hear incredible, the women that I've met at Oxford, some of them have 3 or 4 children and they live on the other side of the world and they travel over to do this degree and they're, you know, on the board of this and they do that. Like, I'm just in awe. I feel like I have it easy in comparison to them, that if you want to make it work, you will, you know, be your own self-starter.
Oh, yes, there we go. Be your own self-starter. That's a great place to end. Thank you so much for joining me today. It's been absolutely lovely.
Nice.
Thank you everyone for listening. Please follow us, Spotify, YouTube, wherever you get your podcasts. Thank you.